What if there was a real witch in Salem in 1692? And what if she had descendants? Raina may run an occult bookstore, but she never thought magic was real. Then she met a stranger that lost part of his soul. As Raina finds herself drawn to this man, she begins to unravel her own family history. She finds there is power in her bloodline and a demonic bargain from the past. As love heats up, Raina must face her family's demons. So this week I read The Magic Awakens by Kristin Bapst. She was kind enough to send me an actual physical copy of her book, which I have to say is it's pretty cool. And the cover design, can I just admire this cover design? I mean, it's really interesting. Anyways, so this story follows Raina, who is a descendant of the original, very first witch tried in the Salem witch trials, who was a slave called Tituba, whose consequences were to be that she was sold to another master, and it was sort of the beginning of that whole situation. So Raina discovers, she meets people. She meets Matthew and his daughter Rose, and she sort of discovers powers along the way, and things are going, well, a little wonkety. There are problems. She's got to deal with a demon-esque figure who is basically stalking her family's bloodline, trying to wipe it from existence, and, shenanigans. So, as far as the story goes, I think this book is really interesting. There can be a lot of things done with the Salem witch trials, and the follow-on to that. It's still a fairly significant thing in the way that people view witchcraft, especially Wicca, as witches, and I think this book sort of focuses on Wicca more than other ideas of witchcraft. I'm not entirely sure. However, the demon thing is definitely a Christianity sort of idea, and it was interesting to see these worlds collide. So as far as the story goes, I think it's very interesting. I liked Raina. She's kind of like, she's a tough girl who's gonna go and cause some serious problems for people trying to hurt her family. And that is really cool. I think the love interest was interesting, the whole romantic situation, because, problematic issues leading to arguments, which led to sort of soul-searching examinations and promises, and that was nice to see, something that just didn't have your typical romantic, everything's fine until that one big argument and then everything is fine forever sort of a thing. My main critique for this book was that the prose itself, the actual words, the sentences were very regular. Everything was active tense or active verbs, which is great because it shows the action of what's going on, but it also misses out on some of the description. There wasn't a whole lot of setting, and I felt a little bit lacking in that department, and the sentence length itself was very regular. You could pretty much have your subject, object, verb, and that was almost it. So I realized that it is a very distinctive style, and it is actually very difficult to do. It just isn't my favorite. I prefer to have a huge amount of variation in sentences. You can have like super complicated things with semicolons and colons, and 18th century literature was a huge part of my childhood, so that's a thing. And I also like the ones where it has, fragmented sentences. I think that's very interesting. If you've got both in there, that's really cool. I like the variation. So this one that didn't have as much of the variation was a little bit harder for me to read, simply because I'm so used to other structures. However, if you're into that, if you like the style, if you like everything very much of the active tense, if you like things going, then go for it. It works out pretty well. The main thing for me was that the description just wasn't hugely there. But I do like the story. I think it's a very interesting story. Yeah, I like the story. I think it's very interesting. The book itself discusses a lot of interesting concepts without being polarizing, I think is probably the best word for that. So if you're interested in a fun magical adventure with a bit of romance thrown in, I would say that give Kristin Bapst's book, The Magic Awakens, this is book 1 in the Six of Salem series, give it a shot. As usual, all of the links are in the description box below. You can find her books there. You can also reach out to me if you want to talk to me about books, about book reviews, about this book in particular. If you want to talk about anything, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon if you're interested in seeing my stories and things behind the scenes, as well as some exclusive art and early access to my radio drama podcast. So that is all I've got for you today. Yeah, I have to say it was kind of cool holding one of my books for review, like, in my hands. I mean, yes, I read all of the books in all of the formats. It doesn't bother me at all if it's ebook versus paperback versus hardback, whatever. Even audiobook, I'm perfectly okay with that. But it's kind of fun to hold. So that's all I've got for you today. I will see you next time. Bye.